For the Unit 7 Quiz 1 practice, I'm going to go through the answer key. So if you printed it off, it'd be wise to go through it. If not, maybe you could have this version in the PDF file up on your screen, and then on the other side of your screen have the video going. Okay, so for the first question, it says select all that apply. Let's try to focus this real quick. Okay, so first, find the vertex of the parabola. So the vertex is either going to be your high or your low point. So in this case, it's my high point, and that would be 2, 6. So that's my vertex, 2, 6. Since it's a high point, it's a max. Okay. The axis of symmetry goes through the vertex. It's a vertical line. Okay, so this is the line of symmetry, or the axis of symmetry. And we have to see it crosses the x at 2. So we're looking for x equals 2. And that should be the exact same thing as your x value here, which it is. Okay, so we had to select 3 answers there. Number 2, it asks us for the parabola again. So the parabola, or the vertex, the vertex of the parabola, so that would be 2, -4. Looks like they're counting by 2's here. So 2, -4. It is a low point, which is a minimum. And it also asks for the x-intercept. So this is your x-axis right here. And that means I would be at 0, 0. And I would be at 4, 0. So it looks like it would be this option right there. Okay, so on the quiz I have it so that you would just select all those little squares. I think there's circles maybe on there. And you just select all 3 that fit the graph that's given to you. Okay, and number 2, it says determine whether the parabola opens up or down, and then find the vertex of the parabola, and is it a minimum or a maximum. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the a value. I'm going to go ahead and label the other value C. Because remember, there's no b here, there's no x. Because that a is positive, the parabola opens up like this. So that's opening up, which means that that vertex would be down here, which is your low point. That's a minimum. Now, to figure out the vertex, we have to use the formula x equals -b over 2a. And we have practiced this in day 1 and day 2. So we have discussed also in that day 1, day 2, there's no b, which means it's just a 0. So -0 is 0, 2 times 2 is 4, and 0 divided by 4 is 0. So this is my x value, and step 2 says you take that x value and you're plugging it into x into the original problem. So step 2, we take that problem, and we had practiced this, that if you have something like a number, which is called a coefficient, in front of the x, you put parentheses around that x part. So y equals 2 times 0 squared, and then we would add 9. So 0 squared is 0, and 2 times 0 is 0, plus 9 is 9. So I am looking for 0, 9 as my vertex. Okay, for number 4, very similar setup. First, we need a label. So I've got A, B, and C. It says determine whether the parabola opens up or down. So the A is negative, which means the parabola is going to open down like this. Okay, now your vertex is at a high point. High is max, so we can check maximum. And then to do the vertex part, we're going to plug into that formula again. X equals -b over 2a. So we would have -18, and then 2 times -3. So -18 over -6. And that divides to be 3. Okay, so we have a 3 for both of my x's here for the vertex. Okay, so now for the second step, we need to plug that 3 into the x's. So we're identifying that this will need to have parentheses around them, and you put the 3 in both of those x's. So y equals -3, then 3 squared. We add 18 and multiply by 3, and then that -2 at the end. So first thing we should do is parentheses, and in this case your exponent. So I have -3 times 9. 18 times 3 gives you 54, and then -2. This gives you -27. Then I got to bring down the other two numbers. So now we're adding and subtracting from left to right. So -27 plus 54 is a +27. -2 is 25. So we're looking for 325. Okay, at the bottom here, I went ahead and gave you the steps to solve quadratic equations by finding square roots. I also put this on the quiz for you as well. So for number 5, solve the quadratic equation by finding square roots. This means like you're doing a 2-step equation, and you're going to do that square root at the end with 2 answers. So first, can you add or subtract something? And yes, we can. We can subtract 13. And this would give me 144. Then it says divide. Well, there's only a 1 in front of this, so I really can't divide. And then lastly, take the square root. So that cancels that out, and you have x equals. And the square root of 144 is plus or minus 12. Well, that means that your answer would be 12 and -12. So we can check that. In number 6, same steps. So can you add or subtract something? Yes. We can add 68 over. So 17x squared equals 68. We divide by 17, and x squared is 4. Okay, so lastly, we take the square root of both sides and get rid of that x squared, and x would be plus or minus 2. So there we go. Okay, continuing on. For the last page, it says that you are solve the quadratic equations by factoring. So in this case, for all of these, we're going to be asking ourselves, is this x factor or is it going to be x factor with bottoms up? So for the first 2 problems, I went ahead and just had you guys do regular, basic x factor, nothing extra. Okay, and I know it's x factor because remember there's a 1 in front of that x squared for both of them. As you can see down here, you have a number bigger than 1 in front of x squared. Okay. All right, so in number 7, we take the first number, so that 1, times 28. And that gives us 28. And we are trying to get to the 11. So the factors of 28, using your pink factor sheet, you have these factors on your pink factor sheet. Okay? You're looking at these pairs and saying, okay, which one of these can add to be an 11? Okay, 4 and 7. They multiply to be positive 28, add to be 11. So this part right here, we have practiced in Unit 6 a whole bunch. Now, in this unit, I want you guys to also solve it. So you factored it. That's factored form. Solving it means you set equal to 0, and we use the zero product property, meaning that we set each one of these equal to 0. We solve. So 0 minus 4 is -4. Here, we subtract 7. So x equals -7. I also discussed in notes that when you do regular X factor, whatever you get here, it'll be the opposite answers. Okay? So I'm looking for a -4 and a -7. So don't let that 4 and 7 trick you. That's the factored form. We want it solved. So it's the opposite. Okay, let's do the next one. So number 8, this is going to be X factor because of that 1. So 1 times -30 is -30. We are trying to get to that 7 in the middle. And so the factors of 30 are listed here. You can also use your pink factor sheet to help you with your factors. Okay, so which one can make a 7? We have 3 and 10. Yeah. Excuse me. 10 and 3. The 3 is going to be negative. 10 minus 3 is positive 7. We also have learned that this side of the x, okay, the bottom half of the x, have to have the same sign as long as this number is bigger than that first number. So 10 minus 3 is 7, and if I multiply, I get -30. So we write that in factored form, and then we solve it. So the pink part that I'm writing is the new part. So we solve it by setting each set of parentheses equal to 0. This is called the zero product property. Now we solve. Add 3, and 0 plus 3 is 3. Subtract 10, and we would get -10. So I'm looking for 3 and -10, and I've got it right there. Okay. The last two I had mentioned was the X factor with bottoms up because that first number is bigger than 1. So we would go 5 times 20 is 100. And we have to get to the middle number 29. And I just realized there's a typo there. That should be 29x. Okay, now we need to find the factors of 100. So check out your factor sheet. And it looks like 4 and 25 could make 29. If I add, I get 29. If I multiply two positives, I get back to 100. So that works out. Okay. So now I'm going to write that in parentheses, x plus 4 and x plus 29. Or sorry, 25. Okay, now because it's bottoms up, you take that first number and you divide by it. So this cannot divide, it can't reduce, so I bring the bottom number up. So I have 5x plus 4. Here I can divide, so I would get 5. Okay, so now we have done all the factoring. Now we set equal to 0, and we're going to solve. And as you can see in the answers, you're probably going to have a fraction. Usually doesn't work out too nice. So for that first one, 5x plus 4 equals 0, and x plus 5 equals 0. So this one we have to subtract 4. So 5x equals 0 minus 4 is -4. Then we divide by 5, and we see that can't divide, it can't reduce, so I'm just going to leave it -4/5. Okay, up here I would just subtract 5, and x would be -5. So I'm looking for -4/5 and a -5. So it has to be the last option there. Okay, and then lastly, again, that's bottoms up because that's bigger than 1. So 2 times 12 is 24. I'm trying to get to 11. So the factors of 24 it looks like 3 and 8. 3 and 8 can add to 11. And then we would have to divide by 2. So I bring the bottom up, and I have 2x plus 3. Divide, I get x plus 4. Okay, so now we're going to solve each one. Subtract 3. So 2x would equal 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Divide by 2. I know that that is improper. I'm just going to leave it negative 3/2 anyway. It's just fine. And then here I would subtract 4. And x would be negative 4. So this solution would have to be this one here. Okay. Go back and rewatch anything that you need to rewatch to review before you take the quiz today. Good luck, guys.